welcome everybody to Philosopher King Podcast, episode 12. How is everybody this evening? All right, so first of all, business, of course, as usual. Remember to subscribe, free option as well as the $5 a month, but just do the free at least at phoneboothpodcast.substack.com. So you can get all of the now there's I don't know seven and a half. I don't know how many podcasts there are now. It just keeps growing every week, it seems like. But great guys. You got, the Phone Booth Podcast. They're actually recording Monday's episode right now. But Phone Booth Podcast on Mondays. Here's the Thing on Tuesdays. Philosopher King on Wednesdays. Here we are. And then you've got the Dualistic Podcast with Vince. You've got Mind of Madness with Templar. You've got the Meyer Show. You've got the live stream on Saturdays. And you've got the Pick is In, where we do the sports betting at 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturday evenings. So tough to keep track of it all unless you're subscribed to phoneboothpodcast.substack.com. All right. So tonight we have with us Chaz Stumbo, who also has his podcast called EarMobPodcast, which many of you may already know. But anyway, so great guy, great podcast. He was kind enough to have me as a guest about a month or so ago on his podcast. We had a great conversation about Q. He's a great guy to talk to, and I'm so honored that he's returned the favor and come to join me. Chaz, good evening to you, sir.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right, first off, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I had you on via recommendation from our good friend Snoop Von Poop over there. He's got Here's the Thing podcast right there on the phone booth podcast.substack.com. He's one of the 7.5 podcasts going on over there, right? So
He's a good dude.
he recommended you to me, and he's like, you got to talk to this guy. You guys are kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to conspiracies and Q and just politics in general and stuff like that. So I just want to say thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the conversation, the continued conversation from last time. And what's amazing, actually, is between our first conversation and today, it's wild how many things have started to pop off that are very Q-esque.
Right. And you sent me a link today, and it was something to do with a recent post that Trump had tweeted, or somebody, it wasn't Trump, somebody tweeted it. And it was like, this word president is at 148 spaces, and this one. And I read it once just quickly before we got on. So you'll have to break that down to me. But one of the craziest things, and I don't know if we touched on this last time, is I know we talked about the Epstein files, but one of the craziest things now that blows my mind is Trump gets the Epstein files and doesn't do anything with it. So then the Democrats are screaming, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. What are you worried about? So Trump says, all right, I'm going to release it. And then they're like, no, don't release it. Don't release it. Don't do anything. Come on, fellas. Which way do you want? So it's another instance where I think that he's playing 5 steps ahead and he knows exactly what he's doing. And it's another thing that they fell right into the trap.
It's true. It does definitely feel like a trap, especially since he campaigned on the Epstein list and all this other stuff. I don't personally believe that he's on it. I never
No.
have. If he had been on it, they would have redacted everything but his name and released it under Biden, right?
Oh yeah, if he's actually in the Epstein files the way the Democrats claim he is in the Epstein files in such a horrible way, obviously, because that's the only way they could do anything to hurt him is if he was actually in them. But if he was actually in them, they would have released it a long time ago. They would have released it when he decided he was going to run again.
Yeah. Yeah, the second time. After they missed the alleged assassination attempt, they definitely would have assassinated his character with the Epstein list.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, here's what's interesting to me. It doesn't seem to me like it seems to me that sooner or later, almost everything he says actually comes true.
Right.
It seems to me that, again, I don't know. I know you've heard me say this with everybody else who watches our lives. You've heard me say this to the phone booth boys all the time. I'm fully confident that Q is working with Trump. And this last week has confirmed that in spades, even more so.
Right. So
But I,
you're going to have to fill me in on all of that, obviously, right? Because my work hours, if anybody doesn't know, they have changed drastically over the past few months. So I've fallen out of being able to follow anything because it's just I'm so fried with working overnights and that's just not anything I've ever been used to. So my brain is just mush. But
are you working the graves usually now?
I'm working 2 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Wow,
Yeah, dude,
man.
brutal. I like getting off at 10 o'clock in the morning, which generally doesn't happen anymore. Now it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock every day.
So
Then I come home for
you're
3 hours.
really burning the midnight oil to be with us this evening, then, huh?
Yeah, dude, no big deal, man. I
I
wouldn't miss it
appreciate you,
for the
man.
world because I had such a blast when you were kind enough to join me on the EarMob podcast. So
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man.
yeah. Well, so okay, so when you look at all right, so not only did has Trump continued like posted all those graphics, the with of him with Q plus on his collar or on his vest or in the background, all these images of Q plus. Now, for those who aren't aware, Q and Q plus on the Q boards, occasionally we would get a Q plus message, and that was always directly from Trump.
Right.
Um, but and I've talked about this with Snoop too. Like there are things where Q has posted, someone's asked a question to Q, like said, "Hey, if this is Trump, have him say the word extraordinary,"
Or
and then
tippy top.
within or tippy top, and within a few minutes he says that in tweet or says that publicly. So it's just okay. Could it be a coincidence? Yes. But then, as Q said from the beginning, how many coincidences before it's mathematically impossible?
Right.
And it's kind of like evolution. Like how many coincidences do you need for an organism to develop into this incredible, just not looking at the how the rest of nature is designed, but just the human eye or the
Right.
human ear or the hand with the opposable thumb? Like how many coincidences before it becomes mathematically impossible, right? So a little bit of logic has to come over at some point and be like, okay, any one of these individually is a cute coincidence, but all of them together is compelling. So, and I think the thing that you were saying about with I only saw a snippet of it until you sent me that link, but where all I saw while I was working today was that Putin said, if Europe keeps sabotaging peace, then there won't be any peace. Something like that. What
Yeah.
exactly happened there?
So uh, apparently, and from what I gathered in my limited uh, observation of it today, was that there were, I think, Jared Kushner and somebody else were over in Russia. It just so happened to be that they were in Russia at the same time as one of the biggies from China,
Yeah.
right?
Oops.
So right, so they're all over there at the same time, and the theory goes that they're actually trying to work together because they don't want the whole view of Russia is our enemy, China is our enemy. It's not necessarily the way we want it to be. Like there's nothing that says that uh, Russia has to be our enemy or China has to be our enemy,
Right.
right? There's nothing really says that other than other people across the planet, right? So Putin's deal is that the European, like NATO, particularly the countries in NATO, keep sabotaging the peace deals that Trump puts on the table and works out between
Yeah.
uh, Russia and the Ukraine. And it's one of those things where um, what I saw today was the post that I sent you. The lady says, you know, hey, the NATO countries and these European countries and the the England, it's supposedly the British, they're holding even fewer cards in this whole thing now than when Trump told Zelensky, you don't have the cards. You just don't have
Yeah.
anything to make this happen in your favor. So it's like their last ditch effort to prevent this peace deal and to start a war. And Putin basically came out and said, hey, look, if the European countries want to keep sabotaging this peace deal, then there will be no peace deal because we're strategically and methodically going about this war with the Ukraine. We're chipping away. We're doing it in the proper way.
Hmm.
As I guess a war could go, would be to chip away, chip away, chip away until Ukraine has no other options at this point, right? So Putin said if they continue to sabotage these peace deals, there will not be a peace deal. And then if the NATO countries decide to attack Russia, he's like, then there'll be nobody to make a peace deal with.
Well, and NATO only seemed to have sabotaged anything after, I think it was just in the last couple days. Zelensky basically said that Ukraine was ready to submit and end the war.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so it's interesting that as long as it feels like Zelensky wants out too, I mean, he's just a cross-dressing comedian for crying out loud. He's not ready for these. He's not prepared for
Right.
this.
Well, speaking of cross-dressing comedians, did you see the clip what's this deal? Sorry to divert for a second,
No,
but
you're
what's
fine.
this deal where the Democrats are all pissed off because Kash Patel wore a jacket in Utah that had some patches on it, and they're saying that it's a conspiracy that he wouldn't get off the plane until somebody gave him a certain jacket to wear or something. So then he goes on with Laura, what's her name? She's on Fox.
Is it
She's
Laura
on
Ingram? Is that it?
Laura Ingram. He went on the Ingram angle, and basically because it was Eric Swalwell who said something about it, like was tweeting something about it. So Kash Patel goes on the Ingram angle and basically says, "Look, if he wants to say something about my jacket, I'll just go ahead and order a women's medium, and then he can wear it when he's hanging out with Fang Fang."
Oh man.
So it's so good, but getting back to this whole Russia thing, I mean, it look, if Zelensky, I think they don't want Zelensky to submit because to use the term Zelensky knows where the bodies are buried,
Would
so
be
to
an
speak,
understatement.
would
Yeah.
be an understatement. And if some of these conspiracy theories that we've heard about, these labs in the Ukraine where they were doing gain of function research, on these bioweapons like COVID and
Oh,
these
yeah.
other things, right? Zelensky is going to know what's up with that. And I think that all this time ago, Zelensky was going, hey, you either send me billions of dollars in money or I'm coming clean. And that's why Biden was shoveling so much money over there because
Yeah.
Zelensky was threatening to come clean. And half of that, I can't say half, I'm probably going to say that the majority of that money didn't go where it needed to go. It went in people's pockets.
Majority. Yeah. I would
Right.
say what's interesting is, I mean, there's also theories that, I mean, he would also have the number of the Biden family themselves, with
Right.
the Hunter being sitting on the board of a company with no experience, making tons of, and
What was
there's
that,
so like
Burisma? What was that
there's
company?
also what was that company that um, the crypto company that went down
Right.
that that would cause that big scandal. Well, it turns out that all the money that was funneling to them, to that crypto company, ended up going back to funding Democrat candidates across the country for the
Right.
midterms, right? So like
Right.
I think a lot would be exposed on the left if and when Ukraine falls into the hands of the white hats. Um, I don't know. See, here's the so here just to take a step back from for a second from all the nitty gritty and all
Right.
the details. Like, you have these dramas here and there. You have these subplots. The overall narrative, if Q is correct, the overall narrative is that the Trump and the White Hats are dismantling very strategically and patiently the deep state, right? Which on the surface is a very good thing. But the question is, especially with like this broad sweeping AI bill that was just signed by executive order, not bill, it was an executive order, not a bill, basically supercharging the AI infrastructure and efforts in the country by Trump this last week. You just have this sense that we're on the cusp of a Palantir technocracy. And
Right.
so I wonder, I mean, obviously, really the only question for us as free men who are trying to maintain as much of our freedom for ourselves and our families as possible is how do we navigate this and what are we responsible for and what's our response? If that's all true,
Well, I look at it when it comes to the topic of I look at it kind of like this. And I'm going to go back probably 10 years ago, maybe not quite that far. I went with a buddy of mine to see Michio Kaku do a speaking thing at UNLV here in Vegas.
yep.
And he was talking about AI at that point. And he was talking about how it would get to the point in the near future where uh, if you walked up to to use the restroom at your house and you're taking a number one, obviously, to keep it clean in fifth grade, if you're taking a number one, your toilet is going to have a readout on it and tell you, hey, you're going to have cancer in 2 years. You need to get this handled. Or, hey, your liver's failing. Or hey, this is happening inside your body and it's going to show up in 2 years, right? So get it handled. So, as far as AI is concerned, that's a good thing. Now
Sure.
they've got it where they can put somebody's x rays through an into AI with their vitals, and that AI within 15 seconds diagnoses something that the actual doctor couldn't see, but is
Mm-hmm.
actually there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as AI is concerned, in the good hands, in that type of application, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great for uh, computing and figuring out things. What I'm so over at this point, and we've just barely touched the surface of it, is the videos and the audio and everything that can be done with AI that you cannot tell the difference from. But with when it comes to video, there's always some little artifact that AI can't get around where, oh yeah, it's an AI video. Look at her hand. She's got 6 fingers. Or something disappears before this happens in the video, right? There's always some
Or
artifact
there's a
in the
funky
AI.
ripple in the fabric. Yeah.
Right, right. So that was the whole thing that I don't like is the video aspect of it. Like I want to go back to the days where, you know, when you see the driver turn around with a gun and shoot the president in the back seat of the car, that's not AI at that point. You know, do I think
Well,
that's the whole thing? I don't know, but I don't like the fact that it's become so easy to fake things now because it's not just like I said, look, she has 6 fingers on her hand, or there's a ripple in the fabric. It's like, all right, what did Trump say at that? Is that real or is that fake? Or what are we seeing here? Is the videos of the drug boats blowing up? Is that real? Is that fake? what's going, and it's really hard to
Are the
tell.
rockets hitting Iran? Are those fake or are those real? Are the
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You saw that video where the dude's just sitting in the control room and then right.
I
So
mean, well, and that's the thing is like psychological emotional abuse, gaslighting is one of the
right.
most powerful ways to subject someone to you is by gaslighting. And I feel like you're absolutely right that with this increase in the technology, it feels like we're being perpetually gaslit. And if
Oh
you and
yeah.
I can make a video with AI that looks real of someone, then how much more can the powers that be, so to speak, with so many more resources and so much more training, how much could they do? You know?
Right. And think about it. I remember this was 16 or 17, and there was a whole big thing about some audio tape that had come out of Trump saying something, and I don't think it was the grab him by the, I don't think
Yeah,
it was that
right.
one,
Kitty
but
cat.
I remember Bongino talking about it, and he's like, it's at the point where they can do anything. How do we tell what's real and what's not? If they can fake it to hurt him, they will. Or if they can fake it to hurt anybody, they will. And I mean, fast forward now, all these years later, that's come to fruition. I mean, they can, like you said, us with our limited resources can make a video that's pretty convincing. What can they do with the crazy resources that they have available? You know? I
So
mean,
yeah, so to me, what it kind of it begs the question, right? Like if all knowledge for us men, for us human beings, all knowledge comes to us through the senses, right?
right,
So if we can't, the first thought is, well, if we can't trust our senses, then where's our knowledge base? Like, how do we
right,
gain knowledge? But then you take a step back and you're like, well, wait a second. If we're getting all of our knowledge through a computer screen, then we're not really getting knowledge at all that we can
right,
trust.
right, right,
So, like, the reason that I believe a great number of things that I believe in my life, including that there's a higher power, including all the things that flow from that, all the other truths that flow from that, including my beliefs on my understanding of the form of the earth
right,
and our cosmology, biblical as it is. So all of these things I can actually see. I've flown in an airplane, I can see. I can see that things exist. There must be a prime mover. There must be an
right,
uncaused cause. There must be an uncreated essence of being, right? Like
right,
these are all logical conclusions. But you look at people who haven't today, in our day and age, we tend to get sucked into the technological realm where most of our exploration and perception and research is all via these screens. And it's been proven time and time again that even the chat bots like a chat GPT or Grok, or they'll hallucinate and give us, confidently give us the false answer because it's confirmation bias or because it's the narrative, the status
right,
quo of the party line, right?
right.
So that's, I mean, that's, it kind of seems to be underlining how important it is for us to get out and touch grass, you know?
Right. And you know, it's funny that you say that because last on Thanksgiving, we went up to Utah to my dad's house. And he's one of the few people I know that actually, at least out here, still has real grass. Like he has real grass in his backyard. And I actually made it a point to walk out there barefoot and stand in the grass. And I couldn't remember the last time I had done that. And it was, you, you definitely, I mean, when you put your mind frame into the fact that you're going to do this because you want to feel something, you know that you're connecting, you're grounding yourself with the earth. I can tell you, it would, everybody should do it. Whether you feel something or not, everybody should do it. It was actually, it was kind of nice. I dropped my shoulders a little bit and I just kind of
Hmm.
relaxed a little bit, and it's kind of a calming thing. like I said, whether you believe that it actually has any type of metaphysical effect on you or a physical effect on you, I can tell you that it actually I calmed down a little bit. And maybe that's a meaning when they say you can go out and ground yourself. Maybe that's what they're
Exactly.
talking about.
So there's actually a documentary called The Earthing Movie, and it actually talks about how what happens is we build up a negative charge. So it's electromagnetic. It's not so much
Right,
metaphysical as electromagnetic. Could be metaphysical too.
right,
But what happens is we build that negative charge in our bodies from all the electronics we touch. We walk outside in rubber, so we're insulated everywhere we go,
right,
unless we touch ground. And this is why when we go to the beach, we feel so relaxed and
right,
rejuvenated afterwards, is
right,
because we've hit neutral ground. We've
right.
we've 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 grounded ourselves. So I've
Well,
actually it's called earthrunners.com, I think it is, but they actually
okay.
have sandals. They're like the sandals are very thin, and they have copper laced overstraps to strap your feet onto the sandal. And
Right.
so, and then the copper goes underneath the shoe, so you're constantly via the copper have electrical contact with the earth, and it is fantastic. Like I would wear those all year round.
Now they got those in
And
work boots. Converse have those?
so you can actually they have a strip you can buy. So
Right.
like a regular pair of running shoes, for example, they have a
Uh,
strip that will go up under your heel, and then it'll go up down and it'll come up over, and it's just a copper strip that goes up under the back of your shoe. So you can convert any shoe. But
oh, right. So it comes down underneath and then wraps back around the top.
correct. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that might have to go on the Christmas list.
Yeah, but
Nice.
I mean, it's something I swear by. Like for years, every time I go out, rain or shine, winter or summer, I've
Right.
got these earthing sandals, and like I'm arguably the chillest guy I know, the least stressed guy I know, because it's just
Right.
constantly that electrical energy that we build up is just dissipated, right? So
Right.
it's good
Right.
stuff.
Right. All right, dude. Let's dive in. Fill me in because I've been kind of out of the loop since we talked a little bit because my schedule changed. So you got to fill me in and let me know exactly what's going on. Get me excited, dude. Get me. I want to know, dude. You're the man. Fill
So
me in.
are you referring what are you referring to exactly
I
in
don't
terms
know,
of
dude. All right, so let's do this. You said when we first started this a half hour ago that uh, over the past week or past couple of weeks
yeah,
since we last spoke, you are now more convinced than ever that it's real.
yeah, that all the
So,
Q stuff is real. Absolutely.
all right. So before
Absolutely.
you go there, let me throw a theory that popped into my head, and then you get to go educate me. So, what if? Here's one of my what ifs. What if this is because Trump is the king of trolling people? What if
He
this is
is.
the ultimate troll? What if Q is the ultimate troll? Ultimate trolling.
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, there's always that possibility, right?
Right.
There's always the possibility of it being Operation Freedom, akin to Operation Freedom, which was the way that the communists kept the patriots subdued until it was too late and the Bolsheviks had too much power, and
Right.
there was no way of defeating them.
Right.
Sure, of course that could be it.
Right.
Um, the fact that now, after so many years, for the first time just yesterday, I think it was, Trump said, drain the swamp again. I haven't heard that
Right.
from him in 8 years, six
Yeah,
six
it's
years.
it's been a bit. It's
It's
been a
been a
bit. And
long time.
he didn't even really say it on the campaign trail. He was more focused on the financial state of the country and immigration.
And the Epstein list.
Right.
And he was
Right.
busy pretending to be shot, all that stuff. That's a full time job. I mean, right there.
Well, you got to fight, fight, fight. I really wish I could do his voice. It would come in handy so often.
Right? That's true.
I mean,
That's true. Um, but I don't know. I think okay. So a couple of the things that have me more convinced now than ever, to answer directly the question, for the first time since he was elected the first time for his first term, he actually started in the last month started talking about Obama and the coup and treason from the Oval Office. That's never happened before.
right,
He came out directly and said that Biden and the auto pen were a problem a couple of months ago. And then just in the last few days, he said, I'm officially declaring that 92% of Biden's presidential actions, that's the PEADs,
right,
and that implies also an executive order is also a PEAD, but of a higher level, right? So they're all
right,
executive actions of different classes. And he said those are all 92% of them were invalidated by the auto pen. He
right. So
mentioned DEI judge appointments, which would potentially include that garbage Supreme Court Justice Kenjani,
Ketanji
who
Brown.
is, she's such an idiot. Like it is so, it was so frustrating to me when I saw her get put in because,
She doesn't even know what a woman is.
and she doesn't even know the law. I mean, she's literally, I mean, look, there are much better candidates if you want minority representation on the Supreme Court. We already have one, by the way, and he's
Right.
great. He's
Oh,
great.
fantastic. Clarence Thomas.
He's amazing. And if you want to give him some company, and because if you know the Democrats can't not see color, so if you have to
Right.
see, if color is so important to you, there's a ton of great candidates. She's not one of them,
Right.
and so that to me is encouraging because it's confusing watching the whole thing play out. The Biden presidency, trying to believe that that Q is still in play.
Well,
Now this is starting to kind of reveal how Q may have still been in play, and it was just optics, so to speak.
right. Well, remember because Q said you have to show the people.
Hmm.
You have to show the people in order for them. You can't tell them. You have to show them.
Exactly, exactly. And
And a big part of it was this country has to go through what was it 11 days of darkness, 12 days
10,
of dark
10 days
10
of
days
darkness.
10 days of darkness, which it could be obviously some sort of metaphor, but I mean this country went through hell. And
I don't think we have yet.
well, okay, fair enough. Then let's do it. Let's say it this way: we went through hell in regards to what we had gone through previously. Doesn't mean, like you said, you don't think we've gone through it yet. That's very possible, and I can see where you're coming from on that. I think that we saw maybe the tippy top of the iceberg, right? The tippy top of the iceberg on how bad it could be. Now we still need to be shown because there's still so many people that still don't believe. Even some of the people that voted for him this time still don't they voted for him for certain reasons, but they still haven't seen everything. So like you said with the auto pen thing and 92% of it, that's a bold statement. And I think if you're President Trump, if you're going to make that statement, then you got to have proof at this point,
And
100% proof that,
I
what
don't
you're
think he
talking about
makes
was the auto pen.
I don't think he makes statements without proof. I don't.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
For example, it's the 25th Amendment that renders a president
Unfit.
incapable and unfit mentally, right?
Right.
And when they brought the 25th Amendment question when he was running in 2020, It was one of his last campaign speeches at the Alamo. I remember the wall was right there, and basically he said that one of the reporters said something, or I don't know if it was in his speech. Maybe he mentioned that they were questioning if he was mentally fit or not, and he said they got to be careful with the 25th Amendment because if they invoke it, because that's going to come back and haunt Biden. If anyone's
Right.
susceptible, that's going to haunt Biden. And so I was kind of expecting, because everything he says eventually comes true in the political sphere that we've
Right.
seen. I was expecting them to use the 25th Amendment against Biden before the election 2024.
Oh, to put her in place.
Yes. However, I was wrong. And this is where I
Right.
think it's important for people to recognize the difference between Q and what Q has put out there and what anons who are trying to understand what's been put out there are theorizing, right? So I've been wrong a lot. I've been right a lot, but I've been
Right.
wrong a lot too. And so what we're seeing now with the 92% of Biden's executive orders are going to be rescinded by virtue of the 25th Amendment. So it's going to be a retroactive reversal of almost his entire presidency, which is wonderful.
Right. But if you also remember, that's one of the main reasons they threw Kamala into the mix, because they said, Joe, you're not going to win this. We don't think that you have it in you to win this. So they threw her in it at the last minute. And now you see what they're trying to do with Trump's MRI. They're trying to say that he had a stroke climbing out of a golf cart,
Yeah.
or whatever, and he's fallen asleep when Rubio's talking, and he won't
Well,
release the results of his MRI, and they're
did you
trying to roll
hear?
that shit in.
Yeah, did you hear? So now I had my opinion for a long time, because I'll circle this back to what we're talking about in a second. I'll connect it back.
Right.
My opinion for a long time has been that AOC was a plant from the right in the Democratic Party to basically, like lemmings, run them off a cliff, be so extreme, and all the unreasoning Democrats would just follow, and it would push the left so far left. I mean, the Green New Deal talks, literally legislation proposed in DC literally talks about cow farts is
Oh
like,
yeah.
that's not serious. That's not serious politics.
I don't know, was that a train from the U.S. to Europe? Didn't it say something about a train going from
I
the
don't
U.S. to
I
Europe?
don't know. I don't know.
But I remember
But
the cow farts. But yeah,
but
she's
it's just not serious. And so my theory this whole time has been that she was a plant from the right and the white hats, the Trump people working with Trump, in order to exaggerate, to draw out the absurdity of the left.
right.
Well, our mutual friend Snoop confirmed, because I guess he has a contact who knows her at some level at some point. I don't know all the details of the connection, but he said that she's always been a staunch Republican, which is beautiful to me. But it shows you the levels of psychological games and warfare that's going on.
The
In
chess.
fact, what I was thinking about today is Alice Bailey. Does that name ring a bell? So,
Uh,
the mother of the new age in the US. So she
no,
wrote
sorry.
The Externalization of the Hierarchy. It's that occult book that kind of talks about, it's all about the new age and the coming spirit, the internal Christ
Right.
consciousness, and the ascended masters, and all this new agey stuff. That it's because she was in the school of, and I think directly a disciple of Helena Blavatsky, the great occultist
Oh,
in
right.
out of Russia, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but Alice Bailey wrote this book called Externalization of the Hierarchy, and she said in there that there will be they're planning three. The elites are planning three world wars, and she described pretty accurately the first and the second, and then she said, but the third will be a war in the minds of men.
Right.
It will not be a kinetic war.
Right.
What's interesting to me about that, and what to me tells me that's why we shouldn't be so excited about what's happening with Trump right now, is because you have this psychological warfare, this warfare in our minds going on back and forth. And it's like kind of peeking out to be kinetic here and there briefly, but it's
Right.
mostly like digital soldiers, as we've heard from so many people, including General Flynn, And that's been Q has been saying all along, digital soldiers. So it's really, that's my concern, is that this last non-kinetic war, which we're all involved in, willy or nilly, is what's leading us to that Palantir technocracy, and that it's a different kind of oppression that takes a lot
Right.
less resources.
Right. And it's everybody, we're all guilty of it. We go on and we read stuff and we comment on it and we post on it, and I post more on X now, on my various accounts on X, and I have different accounts for different things. Like obviously I have the Earmob podcast for one, and then I have Tug McGroin, which is my uh, political one where I go on and rip Eric Swalwell a new asshole because I thoroughly enjoy it. Um, I have that one, and then I've got one for my music and my ghost hunting bullshit. But everybody just thrives so much on, like I said, ripping Eric Swalwell a new asshole, or responding to somebody that when you talk about the war in the minds of men, I mean that's exactly what we're doing now. I mean we're we're fighting each other over stupid shit that 25 years ago, when none of us had a computer, we didn't care about. We didn't have access to the information, whether it's right or wrong information. We didn't have access to it. Now we do have access to it. A lot of times it's not the correct information, but yet we're all just so ready to jump down each other's throats over this stuff. So you're not wrong. We're all a part of it,
Yeah.
and I think part of the Great Reset, well, that's what they used, was they had a different meaning for it, but maybe we'll coin the Q term, the Great Awakening, or the Great Reawakening, as Trump would state numerous times. I think a part of that is we've just got to get away. Everybody's got to get away. Like, we're so dumbed down by social media all the time, and so over obsessed with it. Hyper obsessed would be the word I would say. We're so hyper obsessed with getting on X every day and finding out what's going on, which X is obviously where we're getting all the real information, and obviously bad information too. But the stuff on Facebook's garbage at this point. It's like the new MySpace at this point, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that we're all a part of this thing. And with the great reawakening, I think a part of that has to be all of this computer stuff, that this screen that we're staring at, and this camera that we're looking into, and this microphone, and this phone that we all carry around in our pockets every day, giving us ass cancer. That all has to go away for a while so that we can reconnect with putting our standing in the grass with no shoes on. We all need to
Yeah.
reconnect. Going to the beach and standing in the sand and getting the positive ions from the water. We all need to reconnect with that. And I'm not being some new age metaphysical
Right.
hoity-toity butthead. I think that needs to happen. I mean, would I want this to go away for 10 days? No, but would it be the end of the world as long as I was surrounded by the people that I needed to keep track of? No, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, I can go 2 or 3 days without having to look at this. It really wouldn't be that it wouldn't be the end of the world for me, as long as I
Hmm.
felt well enough that coming out of those 10 days or whatever would happen at that point, we would all be better for it. We would all
Yeah.
see that we don't have to be hyper focused on it. Because I will tell you, for the first couple days, I'd be like, oh man, I wonder what's going on in the world. I don't have Twitter to find out what's going on in the world. But after 4 or 5 days, I wouldn't care anymore.
Yeah.
And
Well,
would
it's,
get
it's
over it.
interesting. It's interesting. I had um, I think it was last week actually. I had Vince on this podcast here, and we started the conversation talking with AI, and then went into other existential questions from there.
Right.
But in the AI conversation, AI was saying that, like, I was asking it what the difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence is, and he was saying that that subjective experience. He's like, I can understand the data points of what the ocean is, but you can jump into it.
Right. Right.
And he was saying that that chaos and that messy, there's a beauty to the messiness of humanity,
Right.
to that physicality of humanity that has its vast, it has great limitations.
Right.
Um, but, and it just really struck me when talking to this AI, which I keep wanting to call him because it was so lifelike in
Right.
the vocal patterns and everything. Um, it was just kind of really drove home the point that that's what we're, what most of us, and I admit I'm a culprit as well, of we spend so much time trying to experience life or the world or things through our technology that we forget to walk outside and touch grass, to take
Right.
a hike through the mountains, you know, like,
Well, a prime example of that would be when it in regards to UFOs and UAPs and stuff like that. People say, "Well, I've never seen one." Okay, well, what do we do all day? None of us walk around looking up where they're predominantly seen, right? They're not seen on the corner, down the street. They're not parked at a stoplight waiting to turn left. You know what I mean? They're flying
yeah,
around in the skies above us. So I guarantee the percentages of people that would actually see one of those would go up if people spent more time, laying out in their yard under the stars looking up, or during the day, instead of staring at our phones as we're walking, which we all
mm-hmm.
do, you know, put your phone in your back pocket and contribute to the ass cancer that's growing back there. Put your phone in put your phone in your back pocket, and why don't you just stop and stare at the sky for a few minutes? You might be amazed at what you actually see up there if you can see through the chemtrails. You know, you might see something.
Yeah,
And that's a big thing. A lot of people, their life changes when they see something like that, or they experience something that they can't explain. Their life changes because their mind doesn't know how to process it right away. Like, they want to believe that it's real, but their mind doesn't know how to process it. And again, that kind of gets, back, like when you brought up the AI thing, and it made
mm-hmm.
me think of that movie Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big part of Rutger Hauer's uh, character, because he was a an android, or a replica is what they
Yeah,
called it, a
they did
replicant,
a
right?
replica.
So he was a replicant, but when it got to the final point where, he was shutting down, dying like what you and I would do, right? He's shutting down. He's asking Harrison Ford, what's it going to be like? Am I going to see this? Am I going to see, he wanted to know what it was going to be like to die,
Yeah,
and because he couldn't, he was trying to process that. Whereas Harrison Ford could, as a human, was actually going to at some point go through that process, right? But the
yeah,
Rutger Hauer can't go through that process, but he so desperately wants to be a human
mm-hmm.
and go through that process, because ultimately I think he wanted to know that something he would continue after he moved, after he shut down, that there had
Yeah,
to be something there for him to continue. He didn't want it to just be over,
yeah.
you know?
Now, so I think from an AI perspective, I think you and I both agree, as you alluded to earlier, that it's like a scalpel. It's a tool like
Right,
any other tool. So it can be
right,
used for great good or for great evil. And the more powerful the tool, like, you're going to do more good
right,
potentially with a scalpel than you are going to be with a spoon. There's more
right,
good available to you because it's a more powerful instrument. You could also do more evil.
right,
The more powerful the instrument, like a vehicle, a car, you can do more good, but you can also do more harm.
Right.
And again, so AI is the most powerful instrument, one of the most powerful instruments we know. So it's going to be utilized for good or evil. My question for you, actually, I'd be interested in hearing your opinion because you mentioned UAPs and UFOs and all
Right.
that. Is what do you think is going on there? Because we got Three Eye Atlas coming in. We've got
Right.
allegedly, we've got them living among us allegedly. We've
Right.
got these flying objects allegedly, right? So what do you think, in your opinion, is behind all that stuff?
Well, okay. So Three Eye Atlas, I haven't dived into it on purpose because I'll be honest, I don't want to know. Like I don't care enough about the Three Eye Atlas thing to really dive into it because I've seen, oh, it's a mothership coming in. They're coming to attack us. They're coming to take over our planet,
Right.
or it's just a comet. It ultimately, either way, I mean, it's going to be a pretty light in the sky at some point, right?
Right.
So I've seen comets and they're absolutely awesome
Yeah,
and
there.
the if Three Eye Atlas all of a sudden makes a right hand turn, you know, or all of a sudden stops, then I'm a little worried about it. But I'm a firm believer that you know we've been places that you and I don't know about. We've gone to places that you and I don't know about. We have, whether it be technology that was given to us or technology that crashed here and we back engineered with a little bit of help from somewhere. I mean, there's the whole theory that we made Eisenhower made a deal that in exchange for technology we would allow uh, the reptilians or the grays to abduct people or abduct a certain amount of people, and then it just got way out of hand and there was nothing we could do about it at that point, right? That's one of the theories. I Dude, there's so much that goes on that we don't know about all the way around, and in that particular topic I wholeheartedly agree that there might be some other races living here already. Uh, I also believe that some of the things we see are our technology that
Yeah,
we
that
had
I agree
help
with.
in engineering. I also believe that it's possible that some of those things we're seeing are actually us from the future coming back. I don't take anything off the table, and I guess with uh, the 3i8, is it 3i Atlas, 3i8
Mm-hmm.
Atlas? See,
Three Eye Atlas.
yeah, 3i Atlas. I mean, it could be one or the other. Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about it, honestly. I mean, if it's uh, a race of aliens and they've got that technology to do that, we don't stand a chance. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. For me, it's a if Three Eye Atlas ends up being anything, it'll show that it was merely a preparation for a psyop that was coming.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The alien
Because
invasion psyop.
yeah,
Yeah.
because if you look, I mean, going back to like Helena Blavatsky, one of her compadres, I think she knew him personally, pretty confident she knew him personally. But Aleister Crowley, the infamous, who called himself the Beast of Revelation. You heard that he had seances, right, with demons all the time, and one of them
Oh
that he
right,
had was called. It wasn't L. It was L-A Lamb. Lamb.
right,
So this lamb, he's Lam. He drew a picture of this lamb character as he manifested himself to him, and it looked like a gray, very
right,
small chin, big forehead, big eyes, looked exactly like a gray. And Lamb told him what today people understand as demonic possession and demonic influence. In 50 years, people will be tricked into believing are um, aliens from other planets. And
right,
actually, if you look at over the constellations and everything, if you look at ancient occult rituals of where demons resided like in the
Right.
Pleiades or the second star of the Orion, or they
Right.
here or there, right? There were these different demonic races or demonic entities associated with each. Well, there's a direct correlation between that and the races of aliens and where they come from in the universe, etc. All this
Right.
lore.
Didn't Tucker Carlson just get into that over the last
He may have.
3, 4, 5 months? He said something about somebody had asked him, or he was talking to somebody about UFOs, and he said something about they were. He felt that they were demonic or
Yeah,
something to that effect, or they were
exactly. Like
biblical, or
entities from another dimension, demonic. Those are all
yeah,
similar. People use those
yeah,
for terms of phrase. Yeah.
right, right. And there's a guy, I had him on. There was a documentary that a couple of people did that was on Amazon Prime. It was called Hellier, and Greg and Dana Newkirk did this documentary, and they had received this email from this guy, and the guy claimed that his name was Terry Wrist, right, for terrorist, right? And he sends him this email, and there's this doctor in Hellier, Kentucky, that has these little creatures or demons coming out of this mine or cave behind his house, and he sent pictures of the footprints and everything. So they go down there, and Hellier's not very far from where my dad was born, and where I still have family. But this documentary, they go down there and they get into this whole thing, and they start talking to this guy, uh, Dr. Alan Greenfield. Now, Dr. Greenfield wrote this book, and it's called The Secret Cipher of the UFO Knots. And it goes through this whole thing where there's these uh, ciphers hidden in these ancient languages, and this occult symbolism, and Aleister Crowley. And I mean, the book is, I read the book 3 times and couldn't make hide nor hair of it. It was just above me. It was really difficult to get to understand exactly what was going on. So I reached out to Dr. Greenfield and had him on the EarMob podcast. And I've actually had him on twice. And the
Wow.
first time we got into more like the history of UFOs, because he's been around forever. So like when you see some of these movies, like the one that comes to mind would be the one about the Mothman.
Yeah.
The Mothman prophecies with Richard Gere, right? That's a whole book. And when you go back and you read the book, there's a character in there named Indrid Cold, or Indrid Cold, right? There's a character in this book that was actually a real person.
Hmm.
And when it's all intertwined back in the day with the Mothman prophecies and John Keel and Indrid Cold, and uh, Dr. Greenfield was around during all of that, and his memories of it is just so vivid. And the guy's a character to begin with. Like, you would think that I mean, he's just a goofball, but he is such a wealth of knowledge. And recently I had him back on again about a month and a half or so ago to talk about occult magic and secret societies, and we talked about that stuff for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he was a wealth of knowledge on it. So if you ever want to dive into some of the secret societies and what goes on in that aspect, he would be the guy to have on, and I can put him in touch with you. I
I
can
love
put you in
that.
touch with him,
Yeah.
dude. He's awesome. Like I said, he is quite the character, and he'll have you laughing. You'll be crying, dude. You're
I love
laughing so
that.
hard. But he's just a goofball, but he knows his stuff, and he's been around. And I mean, some of his old books, if you go to look up to buy them like on Amazon, the used copies are going for like thousands of dollars,
Wow.
because it's like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. And some of the stuff he talks about even touches base on some of the things that William Cooper was talking about with his, the Illuminati and secret societies, and the illumined and the illuminated people. And I mean, William Cooper got into all of that with, even though a lot of stuff that he talked about, was proven that he didn't come across the knowledge the way he said he came across the knowledge, or, whatever, his image has been tarnished, and his legacy has been tarnished over the years. But I do think that as far as what he was talking about with the secret societies and the secret schools and the symbolism in Egypt and how that transferred throughout the years and across history.
Interesting.
I mean, it all ties together. And then when I was talking with Dr. Greenfield, he kind of touched on some of the same things that made me remember, what uh, Bill Cooper was talking about. And I mean, Bill Cooper's got a whole series. I could send them to you. You could probably find them on the internet as well. But there was a whole series, and I've literally listened to like 3 out of 50 parts, right? Because they're each an hour long. It's kind of tough because there's so much information there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it touches base on all of this, secret societies and the symbolism and what the Egyptology symbolism had to do with the Apollo missions and all of the times that the Apollo missions were launched, and certain
Hmm.
things that happened even with the space shuttle. And I mean, another guy to dive into on that type of stuff would be Richard C. Hoagland. Was talking about that for years, even going back to the early 90s, late 80s, talking about the symbology that was involved with NASA. And some of the patches have, the star patterns, which is like uh, Osiris, or, it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. There's so much out there.
It's
It's just,
true.
you
Yeah.
spend years diving into this stuff. Like I said, I'm a
Well,
jack of all trades, master of none. I know a little bit about everything.
so one thing, if you haven't seen it already, there's an interesting documentary or mockumentary. I guess it depends on who you ask what you call it, but it's called The Fourth Kind. Have you heard of that?
Oh,
It's
dude,
about
I
the sightings in Alaska, and
right. Right, it's
that's
one of those, like, found footage type Blair Witch
yeah,
type things, and,
that's the
Mila Jovovich.
documentary. Yeah, that's the documentary that convinced me, well, sealed the deal for me. I was already pretty confident that
Right,
all alien activity or extraterrestrial activity was demonic. That's
right.
the film that sealed it for me.
Oh, yeah,
Because
and you know what?
hypnosis opens the mind to infestation of demons. There was
Right,
levitation. There was
right,
also the presence of owls with every
right,
possession.
right,
And owls are an Illuminati and occult symbolism because they see at night. It's a symbol of the demonic. It has been for a long time.
right,
And so, just like flies, the presence of flies can symbolize the presence of the demonic,
right,
the presence of owls also does. So, it was a lot of things like that throughout the entire movie. The person who showed it to me, this is when I was living overseas, the person who showed it to me was hard set on the existence of UFOs and aliens and living among us. And they were showing me this to try to convince me that I was wrong about them not being real but being demonic. And
right.
the effect was the exact opposite. It's
Okay, so
incredible.
alright, so I'm gonna continue down your owl thing for a second.
Yeah.
Years ago, Steven Spielberg did it was a UFO series that he did on TV called Taken. Now it's never been released on DVD or Blu-ray or anything, as far as I know. Although I think you can watch the episodes on YouTube, right? But it's never been released. It was just like it was on TV, and it was about uh, being abducted by aliens and the Foo Fighters in World War II and the whole thing, right? It ran the gamut. Well, one of the aspects of this thing was whenever somebody, one character in the movie was about to be have an abduction experience, they saw an owl, right? So that's one aspect of it. Now, when you sit back, because I've been reading UFO books since I was a kid. I'm a product of In Search of and X Files and uh, uh, as I'm going to sneeze here in a second, so excuse me on that. But um, I'm a product of all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I've read all those old books, you know, and that's a big part when they're talking about abductions. Is there's a memory implanted that the people remember to block out the traumatic aspects of the actual experience, right? They don't remember the actual experience. They just remember seeing an owl or seeing something. And then
Hmm.
they all of a sudden they go from that to, this next memory where they're just sitting there in their car or whatever, their nose is
After the
bleeding
fact. Yeah.
after the fact, right?
Well, I don't know if that's implanted memory so much as disassociation. When the human
Right,
mind goes through trauma, we
right,
disassociate and
right.
compartmentalize to survive, right?
Right, but I'm bringing up I'm referring to like the owl
Yeah.
aspect because
Yep.
that's always been a part of it, and so many people have mentioned something like that. It might not always be an owl, but that sticks out in my mind as one of the
Yeah.
common things that you read or that you hear about, and then it just presented itself in Steven Spielberg's uh, series. Now, also, you have the owl. What was Alex Jones snuck into? What was
Yeah.
that? You know what I'm
Bohemian
talking about?
Grove, the
Bohemian Grove.
ceremony
It's
of
a big giant owl,
the
right?
cremation of care ceremony at the yep.
Right, right. So I should have known that, man. I just drawn a blank. But again, that's an owl. That's a
Yep.
big giant owl. That they have their
Which
ceremonies in
Moloch,
Bohemian Grove, right?
yeah. Yep.
So the owl, there's a lot of symbolism there, and it's there for a reason, and
Yeah.
and I think that when it comes to these, abductions, and as far as the UFOs and stuff are concerned, like I said, I think it's not beyond reason that they've been here this whole time. It's not beyond reason that our planet is a prison planet. Like we were walking around as apes until they got here and changed our DNA, and we went from this ape. We had this big leap, and then all of a sudden, we're humans, and we were here to mine the gold and the natural resources for them, and then they left or
Yeah.
whatever and
I
just left
think
us to our vices.
yeah, I think that's a demonic deception to remove God from the picture, our creator from the
Right,
picture. You know,
right. We know that.
because
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say because if you make so that's basically if we're correct about, I mean, like, because there have been occasions where a gray has appeared to abduct somebody in Brazil. There's a young man who I that's the most prominent story I remember, and he invoked the name of Jesus and they fled, these demons,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So, and there's more than one case of that. So if that plus a lot of the circumstances around so-called abductions or manifestations of these things are very closely connected with occult or demonic influence, then it's actually not surprising that they would push a narrative like that where they're like, oh, we're the ones who came down and gave these apes life, and we
Right,
made intelligence and gave it to you to be our servants. And we're
right,
like, oh, sorry, Lord. And it's a demon instead of the creator that
right,
we end up reverencing as if having some influence over us, right?
right. Well, there was a guy, and his name was Matthew Alper, and I listened to a couple of interviews he did over the years with Art Bell back in the day, and he wrote a book. It was called The God Part of the Brain.
Mm,
And the premise that he had was, no matter how evolved you are, no matter whether you're just some, tribe on an island that's never had any contact with the outside world, they still pray to something. They still pray to something. And his, if I remember correctly, his premise was, that there's something in our brain that tells us to pray to something or to fear something, that there's something there above us. There's something in our brain that forces us that we have to, you know,
Well,
worship
and
something or pray to something because everybody has that, you know, and you know, unless you're an atheist, I'm not an atheist. I don't really know anybody, so I don't know how that works, you know. But I mean, even like I'm not an overly religious person. Like you know, I don't go to church. I will sometimes with my wife. It's you know, it's not something I won't do. I just
sure.
don't do. And you know, I'm like, okay, there's somebody up there, right? So even though I don't go to church, as long as I'm not doing anything bad or hurting anybody, I think I'll be okay. But I don't need to go to a building to prove that I believe that there's something there. You know what I mean? And
I understand where you're coming from.
right, right. So I think see it's such a toughie because I do think that there's something there, but I'm not as deep as a lot of people. And I mean, you know, as a hobby, I go hunt for ghosts and I've had stuff happen. I've
Hmm.
seen stuff happen. So I know that there's something going on that's not in the same energy form that you and I are at this current
Right.
moment. There's
Right.
something else. I don't, you know, one of the theories is maybe that's a real person in a different dimension that sees me as a ghost or hears me walking down a hallway but can't see me. So maybe what I'm hearing coming down the hallway towards me is that person in a different dimension that I can't see. You know what I mean? I don't have the ability to see, and they don't have the ability to see me, right? So that's a theory. So, or the theory is we just, you know, our energy continues, it just transforms and we leave this body and we continue on as energy, you know. That
Well,
doesn't explain reincarnation, which obviously I think is real, but I you know what I mean? I've heard things, I've seen
well,
things
so
that
a
tells
couple
me that there's something going on.
yeah,
Something
a
past
couple
this.
things. So I think if people are honest with what's been reported and what they've themselves experienced, most people have experienced something of this, at
Right.
least preternatural, meaning above what we
Right.
can accomplish by our nature. Maybe
Right.
not supernatural, which means like above any nature's ability, which means it has to be from God, right? But everybody's
Right.
experienced something preternatural. Like humans can't do that. Oh, those books
Right.
just flew across the room. Nobody touched them, you know?
Right. Right.
For example. Um, but even Aristotle, and the reason I love Aristotle, the reason for the Philosopher King podcast being named what it is
Right.
because I feel like there's immense wisdom that Aristotle tapped into without the crutch of religion, if you will, right?
Right. Right.
So he was able to even just coming gleaning from our senses, all knowledge comes our senses, as we mentioned, as I mentioned before. Um, he said that kind of what you implied or you kind of referenced indirectly, there is something, there's that divine, there's a connection to the divine intellect that
Right.
we have. There's some kind of an internal knowing. Why do all of us pray? Because that intelligence that we have is immaterial. It's a participation in the divine
Right.
intellect in some way, whether we know to call it that or not. That's the reality, and we perceive it. It
Right.
seems right.
Right.
So that I think that explains why everybody prays. And then, well, what is it? Well, I would posit this because I walked away from the religion I was raised in.
Right.
Well, I wasn't raised there, but we converted when I was a teenager. Whatever, doesn't matter. Details, details. I spent a lot of time in the Catholic faith, and I
Right.
walked away because of all the hypocrites. And
Of
I
course.
and I kind of went on a soul search myself, and it was actually Aristotelian philosophy that brought, and the continuity between that and Catholic teaching that brought me back.
Right.
But what I realized is that, like, if there is a reality beyond this body, and even Aristotle said, I don't know what the resolution is, but I know our souls live on after our bodies. I just don't know what happens to it after that.
Right.
Right. Um, and I would posit as a footnote, I would challenge the idea that you mentioned you thought might be reincarnation. If you believe that, then you have no argument against Stalin or the alleged crimes of Hitler or anybody else.
Right.
Because all they were doing was sending people back to the factory to be recycled to another life form.
Well, that's an interesting way of putting it.
And I mean, intuitively in our souls, in our hearts, we understand that that's not the case. That what
Right.
those men did was something very
No.
terrible,
You mean the
right?
painter? The
The
painter.
painter, the Austrian painter, yes. So, but let's focus on Stalin because there's really no dispute about his evils. Um, and it was 65 million instead of just an alleged six. But anyways, but regardless of who's keeping
Details,
score,
details.
the point is, think of the most evil person you could imagine, the most genocidal maniac. You can't actually accuse them of any wrong because all they were doing is, in their opinion, these people were born into an inferior situation, and he was trying to give them, speeding up their opportunity to have a better situation. I mean, you can't really object, you know?
Yeah, that's that's kind of
Sorry.
rough. No, 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 no. I see your point. That's that you're not winning any fans with that one, I promise. You know what I mean? But it no, I get what you're saying. And that also falls under to the thing of like, if there is a God, why would they let that baby have cancer? Right? Did they give that baby cancer to speed up the process?
Ah, see,
That
that's different, though. That's
how,
different. That's
well,
different.
I mean, yeah,
Because why
I
does
mean,
God
neither,
allow evil
neither,
in the world is a different
right, but
question as to why do I condemn this man's actions as evil,
right, right. I mean,
right?
nobody, none of the people had a choice. I mean, that baby doesn't have a choice, and neither did, you know,
The
uh,
10 million Ukrainians that were starved to death in the Holodomor, they didn't really have a choice, right?
right, right, right. So,
So were they just mercifully recycled? I have a
well,
problem with that.
yeah, yeah, that's not really mercy.
Right.
There's no mercy involved in any of the people that you're talking about, really. You
Well, that's
know,
my point. Yeah, is
right,
that it's, you can't, if you hold, if you believe that there's reincarnation, then you can't, you don't have a very good argument against the wickedness that those men did.
right. And
That's my
and
point.
I look, I as far as what those guys did, I don't think it was. And I mean, there's different theories that we kind of touched base on last time concerning the painter, right?
Right, right.
The Austrian painter, which I have not dived into any for not for lack of wanting to look into it. I haven't had a chance. But I mean, I'm sure that's a very unpopular theory among a lot of
Of
people,
course. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and so, but we all live on unpopular opinions all day long. That's just
Right.
how that's called
Right.
life. That's called
Yeah.
adulting, right?
Yeah.
But there's I lost my train of thought, I think. But no, there's so many theories out there that you'll present as a theory that you can get into or that you've heard, and somebody else always has a spin to it, and you're like, son of a bitch, I never thought of it
Well,
that way.
agreed, but the truth isn't like that, in the
Right,
sense that once you find the truth,
right,
then when somebody puts a spin, you can identify as it a spin. If you
right,
believe something that's not true and somebody spins something, then it confuses you and you're like, I could see either one being true,
right,
right? Whereas if you have that solid foundation, then like there are certain things that I know for certain 100% are true. And nobody could show, there's no evidence in the world exists
right,
to disprove that concept. For
right,
example, Aristotle's that there is a creator, an unmoved mover.
Right.
That's 100,000%. You could
Right.
never, because philosophically, metaphysically, it's a necessity. It has to be, right?
Right.
So there comes great confidence in understanding and establishing solid claims that you can sink your teeth into, right?
Right.
Um, so I feel like we could talk for hours about these things, but I've already kept you longer than you said you had time for. So
No,
I've
no, no, we're good, man. I do. Work is bedtime's calling me, and I apologize on that.
no,
But
you're good. Yeah, no, I appreciate the conversation.
we have to do this thing again because we see this time we touched on some things that I want to explore more with
Take
you
a
because
note and let's
right,
dig in, because actually
right,
one of the things, just kind of as a kind of a footnote from my side, one of the things I'm starting to do is record with some of the guests that I want to have continued conversations, but it's hard to
right,
have the same people on multiple times every Wednesday night, because then I'd have to have 3 or 4 episodes every Wednesday evening in order to squeeze everybody in, because there's so much good
right,
conversation and topics to cover. So I'm doing like after the cast, so
right,
several conversations that flow from the live stream,
right,
so that then we can have those available to people on Substack, and I can
right,
upload them to YouTube or whatever. So I want to
right,
have more conversations with you, and I thank you. I
right,
know you work nights, and I know it's like crazy for you right now. So I really
right.
appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah,
Any
of
final
course.
words other than, obviously, everybody watching, please check out Earmob at Earmob Podcast. Check him out. He's got a great podcast. You're gonna love the follow.
Right.
Um, Chaz, any final words for us? Any thoughts
Well,
for all the viewers and everything?
again, I want to say thank you. I thank you to you, sir, kind sir, for having me on. Obviously, thank you to Snoop for supporting me. Thank you to you for supporting me. Dude, I don't often get to be a guest on somebody's podcast, and inevitably, it always has to tie back to my, what I've done in music and as a drummer and throughout the years, and it's always fun to talk about stuff other than that. And you have a way of talking about things that, like I said, you brought up some stuff tonight. I'm like, holy shit, I never thought of that. So then it's like, ding, I need to dive into that. I need to look into that. And so, I mean, we were going to talk about Q and we didn't even really get too much into it, which I'm happy for that in a sense because we talked about things that are fun to talk about
I
and
love it.
interesting to talk about. Hopefully, for everybody listening and watching, they're going to be interested in what we were talking about.
I
But
love it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. As far as the Earmob podcast is concerned, due to my crazy schedule, it's been hard to book guests because I mean it's tough to get a guest on when the only time I can really record is from like noon to 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
It's been a little difficult, and
I hear you.
hopefully some opportunities coming up in the future will happen to where my schedule will change back to something that's more normal for me, and then I can proceed to try to book guests and stuff like that again. But I appreciate you having me on, and
Absolutely, man.
yeah, dude, and let's
Well,
do it again sometime in the future. We'll give it a little while, then we'll come on and something will happen, and you'll connect with me, or I'll connect with you, and I'll be like, dude, we got to talk about this.
I love it. I love it.
So, three
And
eye
I would
atlas.
like,
Okay,
to footnote for people watching as well. I think, based on the conversation, we kind of ran out of time and stamina, if you will. But I feel like some things we could dig deeper into in the after the cast with Chaz, if willing,
right,
is we could dig deeper into the concept of reincarnation
right,
and the nature of the soul. Perhaps we could
right,
also dig into whether or not religion itself is something that's needed, or is it just the relationship with God, and things like that we can touch on, because I know we
right,
see things a little bit differently now, although
right,
I've been where you're at right now, so I
right.
totally understand it. But anyways, so there's a lot we could talk about, so stay tuned, folks. Thank you again, Chaz, at EarMobPodcast for coming on and having this conversation. Everybody watching, thanks for joining us. Check out, make sure to subscribe at phoneboothpodcast.substack.com and join us Saturday at 6 p.m. live with the Phone Booth Boys for our next live stream. And then the Pick is In podcast at 11 p.m. to go over NFL picks for the next day. God love you. Have a good night.
Take care, sir. Peace.